is Kai and Lafayette.
We're two ex-engineers who quit our jobs to pursue the path with heart.
We believe that experience is fundamental to understanding life and its concepts.
So our weekly podcast is filmed and recorded on location from various parts of the world.
It's thanks to our Patreon members like you that we're able to produce this content regularly.
We offer varying benefits based on your pledge amount, from full-length videos of the episodes to weekly streams.
So please check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/thetheoryofliving.
Subscribe, leave us some feedback, and please share with your friends.
We're live.
We are living, we are alive here at the Theory of Living.
Yeah.
Coming from... Can you tell them?
Yes. Chiang Mai, Thailand.
You hear that, guys? We finally did it. We freaking made it. I can't believe it. After all these sorrowful nights of crying about COVID.
See tears.
It's actually sweat because it's extremely, extremely hot in this corner of the room.
Yeah, let's talk about that actually, right? I mean, this is a 4-star hotel. I mean, this hotel doesn't really represent entire, hotels in Thailand, but AC is not working properly. I think they're just reducing cost. And is this me, by the way? Oh, sorry. So the AC is really not working properly. So it's really hot, and we're just like, I don't know, like 10 feet away from the AC, the actual bedroom area. Bedroom area is fine. I mean, it's not great, but it's fine. But this close to the window area is hot.
Extremely
hot. The temperature difference is about like 10, 15, I don't know. We're actually about to break a sweat.
Yeah. And we've just started.
Yeah.
Also, when you say 4-star hotel, for the people out there hearing, it was 600 baht a night.
Yes.
Which is
cheap. Very
like
cheap.
$20 a night, basically.
Yeah.
So, $10 each.
Yeah. I mean, this hotel, I am not going to, say a name of this hotel, but this hotel seemed to be very old, right? Historical even. I'm sure this hotel was luxurious at first and very, popular at that time.
Yeah.
But seems like because of the dying tourism in Thailand, they're reducing costs just by any means they can right now.
Yeah, it's understandable. And there's a lot of work to be done. But it's amazing. One thing of interest that we've talked about and we've seen is, despite the fact that there's not a lot of business going on right now, that every shop you go into is extremely staffed, like well staffed.
Yes.
And we have to look into as to why that is. Maybe culturally they've kept a lot of people on, despite that maybe there's some type of stipend the government's providing. But it's hard to imagine a lot of places even like this that can still maintain a staff with relatively little to no guests and almost no tourism. But that's for another episode. What we're talking about
100%.
today is one of my all-time, probably the biggest love of my life as far as like physical activity is concerned, but rock climbing.
Yeah. I mean, this is almost kind of nonsense that, we could have talked about this anytime, even in Phoenix, but we specifically chose this time because...
Well, we're going to be going to Krabi, or Krabi as we were made fun of for calling it. I guess it's properly pronounced Krabi. There's, Tonsai and Rayleigh, known for their limestone cliffs protruding right from the ocean, right off the beach. Just amazing, amazing sport climbing.
Right. But we're not there yet.
Not yet.
But we're going to be there soon.
Yeah, and not to mention, there's some climbing here, Crazy Horse, but we don't really know anybody in the area to go and get out there. We met some locals, so potentially before we leave the area, we'll go climb out there.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm looking forward to being on the beach.
Yes, I'm ready for it. So basically we came here, we talked about this, many times on our podcast. Finally happened. We arrived in Bangkok, Thailand last week, right? The 2nd of March. And we went through the first PCR test. Fortunately, we tested negative. And then we stayed in Bangkok for about a week, right?
Yeah, a little over a week, I think.
Yeah. And then we just came to Chiang Mai 2 days ago. Been amazing. I think Chiang Mai is way better than Bangkok.
Yeah. Bangkok's your major city. It's similar to a lot of other major cities around the world. Yeah, there's some cultural differences, but primarily it's shopping, eating, all the things that you would have in a large city. All the accommodations, commodities and things of that nature. And
Mm-hmm.
don't get me wrong, we had some fun there. We saw
Mhm.
some cool things and met some awesome people, awesome Thai people,
Mhm.
you know, that are very kind. But it is so much more relaxing
Mm-hmm.
being here closer to, you know,
Mhm.
a mountain area and just more laid back. And interestingly enough, like we
Yeah.
mentioned, or sorry, not that we mentioned, but we were told that even the language and the dialect is slightly different here
Yes.
for the Thai. So everything's slightly different, very similar but slightly different,
Mm-hmm.
and very appreciative about it.
Yeah.
So
But anyway, yeah, we can make that for another episode.
Yeah.
For sure. But today we're gonna talk about climbing.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about like how long you have been climbing and how you started, just briefly. I mean, obviously we can talk about very details of everything, but we will probably talk about more generic things about climbing today. But I mean,
Yeah.
obviously it's important for you. Very, I mean, you love it. I mean, I started to become, you know, more enthusiastic climber. I'm pretty new still, but
yeah.
anyway, yeah. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the first time I was ever introduced to climbing was probably when I was living in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't a climber at the time, and I always saw these guys climbing these huge walls, you know, whether it was like National Geographic or
Mhm.
whatever magazine, and I thought that is so badass. I was
Mhm.
like, man, I wish I could do that. Because to me,
Yeah.
I thought that was just an elite skill that
Mhm.
only the most athletic people, you know, sponsored
Right.
and things of that nature could actually go do. I had no
Mhm.
idea that you can go, anybody can learn how to climb
Mhm.
and go climb pretty much big mountains. And you can literally portaledge,
Yeah.
you know, which for those out there who don't know what that is, it's when you literally are sleeping on the mountain, right?
Mhm.
So you're locked in and all that.
Right.
You have kind of a bed type apparatus there,
Right.
all your gear with you, and you sleep on the mountain. And to me, I always just thought that was like so adventurous and so
Mhm.
wild and so appealing. And I didn't get into it. I mean, I had a pair of shoes. I went once or twice because I had friends or family members that wanted to go to the gym or something like that. But I wasn't a climber, not even close. It was just something randomly did, you know,
Mhm.
something that a lot of people have experienced. Like maybe you had a birthday party, maybe there's a rock wall that you went and climbed. That was my experience. And then 2000, I believe it was 16, I think, because we actually started together
Yes.
back in Austin, Texas,
Mhm.
at Austin Bouldering Project. We went and started together, and I immediately fell in love with it
Yeah.
because I'd always had the background in parkour, gymnastics, huge into weightlifting, and I was primarily a weightlifter at that point in my life, and it was always very enjoyable to try to get more mass or stronger, things like that.
Mhm.
But I kind of felt like pointless. Like, what am I doing? This isn't really going anywhere. It's just
Yeah.
lifting for lifting's sake and aesthetics and things of that nature.
Mhm.
And then when I got to engage in a physical nature while also problem solving, and then on top of that,
Mhm.
I was outside in nature, exploring things, doing things that I thought were beyond me that only professionals could do. And I was very fortunate because I met an Australian climber
Mhm.
who literally showed me the ropes. You know,
Yeah.
the first day out, I'm following trad. We're doing like sketchy things in Enchanted Rock. And he's like,
Mhm.
"You cool with this, man?" I'm like, "Yeah, dude, let's do it. Let's just go with it."
Yeah.
And then the very next day, I was lead sport climbing. And then literally 2 days after that, I was leading trad. So I was thrown right into the fire of it. And
Right.
I think it was a very fortunate experience for me because the guy he was a seasoned, you know, as a veteran. Shout out to Luke, you know who you are.
Yeah.
And so I really got this feeling of sense of adventure that I never had. I've always so desired.
Right.
You know, I always felt like I was born in the wrong time period. Like everything's been discovered. We've all heard this adage before, you know, like there's nothing new to be discovered.
Mhm.
But in climbing, the world was made new to me. And there was all these beautiful places that I could go.
Yeah.
You could plan vacations around your hobby.
Mhm.
And I always thought, wow, this is exciting. And I just kept wanting to get better and better and better. I'm still on that path.
Right.
So that's how I got into climbing.
Right.
And
Well,
what
yeah,
happened? Why did you fall off?
Yeah, right.
For
So we started together in 2016, and I was still. I mean, you kind of stopped lifting, but I kept going, right?
Yeah.
And then sometimes when it comes to physical activities, and you know, basically doing anything to improve strength and, you know, just basically be best at everything physically. So I was just pushing too hard. You know, I would lift in the morning or during the day, and then I would climb in the evening.
Yeah.
And running and all that, right? So I just let my body become more susceptible to injuries. And sure enough, okay, so this is the stupidest part. Like, I would do back workout during the day, and then I would climb hard in the evening, right? So all back muscles and triceps.
Yeah.
So I literally torn my tricep, and I still remember that day. I mean, at first it wasn't too bad.
It was the purple, right?
Yeah.
I remember the climb. I remember exactly where it was.
But then the pain was so bad. I almost screamed. I still to this day I've never had any pain like that. You know, very sharp pain. So I smoked weed, you know, to
trying to
alleviate it. But I mean, it was so bad. So I had to just stop it completely.
Yeah.
And then that was it. Like, I never went back to it. I was too scared in a way. But also I had other passions as well, right?
Yeah.
I liked running, lifting, and Muay Thai. I had other stuff already, you know, occupy my schedule, free time. So I basically just, you know,
you switched into those things.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because we were living together, and we were doing these different things. Like, I'm at the climbing gym, you're at the lifting gym, and then we're going to go get dinner and go have drinks afterwards.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because there's so much, like, we spent a lot of time together in our lives at that point. But it's funny because both our hobbies that we were doing pretty religiously, we didn't overlap or do together, which is weird to look back on, because I think about, we were talking about it the other day. It's like, well, what were you doing? I don't remember that. And I was like, what were you doing? Like, what were each other doing?
Right.
So that was a really interesting time. But yeah, I was bummed when you hurt yourself, because, I mean, we were both progressing very quickly, which is, you know, easy to do when you start something.
Right.
And we had, you know, the strength and the background for all the body weight type stuff, but our tendons and our fingers, those things take longer.
Right.
And that was, you know, that's something to look out for, because climbing especially, or gymnastics, anything of this nature where you're loading the tendons and the ligaments, things that take years to develop, it's easy to apply too much tension and overwhelm it mechanically, and you can FL, cause injury, and all these other things. So when you're new to climbing, you have to be very periodic in the way you approach it. Even though you're stoked and you're excited, you can't go every day.
Yeah.
Or you shouldn't, you know, for the sake of your muscles and ligaments and all those other things. And that's a hard lesson to learn, that honestly up till probably this year.
Right. And then there are so many factors, right? I mean, when you said that you should do probably every other day, but then that also is not the most accurate way to judge it, because it's based on, you know, how hard do you climb that day, right? So there are so many factors. As far as you know, I mean, this applies to other sports as well, but I think it's more applicable to climbing, because I think there hasn't been, relatively speaking, many studies on the relation between, you know, injury and even like measuring the load on your muscles and tendons. I mean, we can't really quantify those things, and yet accurately, at least there haven't been a lot of studies on that. So it's kind of, I guess, how we do it is anecdotal, like trials and errors and things like that.
That's the hard thing. There's some studies, but they're based on a specific hold depth, you know, type of hold, position of your hand, whether it's full crimp, half crimp, open hand, you know, how the tendons are loaded. But unfortunately, that doesn't do a direct representation of when you're climbing, because the holds are varied. You know, the amount of weight you're putting on your hands varied based on your feet, position of your body, you know, your hips, and all these other things. Yeah. And when you're new to something, you came in because, you know, a lot of these things don't necessarily have, like, you don't have, like, proprioceptive feedback, like nerve endings and some of these sensations that you're just not aware of. So you don't even know how to gauge, like, I'm at the threshold. Like, I've used too much energy. Like, I'm at risk of injury right now. So it's incredibly difficult, and a lot of people, unfortunately, just have to learn by this process of trial and error where you get hurt, okay, you back off, you try to like moderate, and then you do something else, then you get hurt again, and it's just like very painful process for most people, and they stagnate. They never actually get past the stage where they're at because they either keep getting hurt or they're not loading their tendons properly enough to strengthen them.
Right.
And it's like you said, it's a relatively, it's not a new sport, but it's exploding in popularity.
Right.
So there's a lot of misinformation out there, not good information, and not to say that's intentional. It's not disinformation.
Right.
It's just we don't have like robust studies
Yes.
around a lot of these things. And also, this is where experience is such a valuable thing.
Right.
Because it's personal. It's made for you in that regard. Your feedback of what you've gone through to help with you. And I think a lot of people run into the situation with climbing. I see it all the time on the forums where they're looking for answers from other people. And they don't really have a methodology that they can apply what works for them. I get it. We want to quantify everything.
Yeah.
Like, we want to live in a quantifiable world, but unfortunately, most of climbing is qualitative. Even the grades. So there's, in bouldering, we use in the U.S. like the Waco system. So it's I'm going to say it starts at 0. It doesn't start at 0. There's some things below that, all the way to V17. And those grades are not linear.
Yeah.
And depending on the style of the climb, for example, if it's V4, you're in a cave, you're overhung, maybe you're really strong. The holds are going to be bigger, right?
Sorry to cut you off, but for the audience who don't know anything about climbing, can you explain them, difference between bouldering and other types of climbing?
Of course, sorry. So you have several different disciplines of climbing. If we were to compare it to something like gymnastics, you have different categories or different events. So they're all types of gymnastics or all types of climbing. So you have bouldering, which involves ascending a boulder from the ground up to the top, usually topping out. Sometimes you'll finish on a hold, but these climbs are from, you can be barely off the ground up to a high ball, like 30 feet off the ground. Most of the time you're in like the 10 to 15 foot range.
Right.
And you have crash pads below you, but you have no gear. The only thing you bring with you is the shoes you're wearing on your feet, and then a chalk bag if you want it, or you just chalk your hands before. And you try to go all the way up. So that's bouldering. That's my favorite because it's typically awkward and requires you to engage your body in very more strenuous positions, more power, typically short. There's longer problems, but not something like sport climbing. Yeah. So sport climbing, being one of the next disciplines, is when you ascend a wall or a pitch or several pitches, so a rock face, and you have a rope. And you're clipping through a carabiner or quick draws as you ascend. So you're placing gear, and then you're feeding your rope through until you reach the top. So there's bolts in the wall that somebody's already drilled and put there, and you put your equipment in, and you put your rope in to protect you from falling. So that's sport climbing. And then the last type, other than ice climbing, is trad climbing, which is just short for traditional climbing. So the way people used to ascend things. So again, you're going to have a rope, harness, all that jazz, except this time there's not bolts in the rock. So you're using gear to either passively protect you or actively engage. So, if you've got a crack and it's like this, like a V notch, you're going to put something in there. Typically it's going to be a cam or another type of device that gets loaded, so it's just going to be held there passively, in place. And then if you fall, that's what you land on. You're being held by that. So it's typically way scarier. You're usually climbing like crack systems. It's not face climbing, and you're putting your gear as you go. Yeah. And then finally, of course, you have ice climbing, which is just crazy madness. You got ice axes, you got frozen waterfalls, and you're just making your way and ascending that. And again, sport, trad, ice climbing, these can all have mixed climbing, so you can have multiple of those things in one route. Right. So maybe at one point you're taking your gloves off in ice climbing, you're actually using that. Maybe you're clipping, maybe you're not drilling an ice screw into the ice. So those are the primary forms of rock climbing. And then of course you got free soloing, which only a few people engage in because you have no gear and you're ascending something super high, where chances are if you fall, you're going to die.
Yeah.
Alex Honnold, he's very popular, probably the
Mhm.
most popular climber now. He's popularized that.
Yeah.
And I've only done it once, and not very high.
Mhm.
Incredibly terrifying.
I bet.
Yeah. It was this wall in Arkansas. We were trying to exit this canyon, and we couldn't find like the
Mhm.
exit. So there was like a little area that looked pretty easy. You know, I was like, it's probably like 5'8" or 5'9". It's like 40 feet, whatever. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna go up it, put the rope on me, and then I'm gonna set up a top rope from a tree or something like that, and then we can ascend you. Got up there to the top, realized it's all just grass,
Mhm.
and let me tell you, that was the scariest mantle of my life. I was like just grabbing the ground and just like, okay, I'm about to die. And as soon as I got up, I grabbed that tree so
Yeah.
quick. And again, I was with the crazy Australian guy, Luke. We can't
Yeah.
do things together. We always get in trouble. So those are the types of climbing.
Right. And, go back to the grading system you were talking about.
Mhm. Yeah, so within that grading system, where I was saying, it's not linear,
Mhm.
and grades are anecdotal, qualitative in that regard.
Yeah.
Like, there's an agreed consensus on most grades, but based on, your build, your body type, your strengths, your weaknesses, the difficulty is going to be varied. How hard something feels, how easy something feels.
Mhm.
So it's kind of hard to start to quantify climbing.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying it's like a foolish approach, but we should also not miss out on the qualitative, the experiential part, because that's extremely valuable. You don't want to kind of take the joy out of a lot of this stuff by just throwing numbers and systems around all of it. Like, yeah, you have to grade things to let people know it's safe, it's unsafe, how close to your skill level can you do it, of course. But one of the joys of climbing is the extreme personal aspect of it.
Right. Yeah.
But what would you say? So you've done everything but trad climbing and ice climbing.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference?
Bouldering for sure. Yeah. Because I'm still terrified when I go up too high.
I know we were looking over the railing. You're like, oh, it's kind of scary.
Yeah. But I'm sure I'll get better. So I'm looking forward to it, especially in Krabi. I don't know if there are multi-pitches there.
There are. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking
Yeah.
forward to
Actually,
it.
we went and did your first multi-pitch the other day with our friend Marty
Yes.
in Sedona, and that
Right.
was quite the
Yeah,
experience. You
quite
want to
an
talk a bit
experience.
about that?
Yeah, so that was my first multi-pitch, and we got there in the morning, really relaxed, and then the routes were pretty easy. That's what I was
Mhm.
told. And then we got up there. It was, by the way, it was really cold, and we had an additional backpack, and but it was relatively warmer down there on the ground level. So we went up. The climbing itself wasn't too hard in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
but again, just fighting the fear, right? I mean, that was the one thing first of all, and then we kind of miscalculated the timing, and then when we got to the last pitch, it was getting dark, right?
Yeah.
And we were expecting to actually have some sort of
Walk off.
Yeah, walk off, but there wasn't any, right? So we started actually freak out, but then anyway, we got to the top, and then we started rappel down, but it was dark,
Yeah.
pitch dark, and then we didn't have flashlights.
No headlamps.
No headlamps.
Just our phones.
Just our phones. But the problem is, that was my first time doing it. I mean, if I had done it before, then yes, I could have done it easily. I mean, that wouldn't have been too much to do, because you have muscle memories and things like that when you do certain things, many times. But then there was my first time, right? And then I had to do it in the dark, right? So it was terrifying, but we did it. Marty too. I mean, Marty.
It was his first time too.
His first time too.
Yeah.
So two beginners, and then I guess it was a lot of pressure on you because you had to make sure that everything's safe, but also at the same time you had to make sure that we were executing properly.
Yeah, I was just trying
on the
to,
go.
That's why when we got to the top, I was running, looking for the bolts. Like,
Yeah.
we need to rappel, try to get us set up to just get out of there. I hate
Yeah.
it putting you guys in that situation, but this is also kind of one of the bittersweet, enjoyable aspects of climbing.
But
It
also,
turns into an epic.
Yeah, but also the reason that we executed quite well is that first of all, none of us really panicked at that moment. None of us really panicked. We really focused on the problem, focused on the solution rather, and then we knew that the only way to get out of the situation is to actually do it.
Yeah.
Right. So in that sense, my mind was pretty at ease.
Yeah.
That it's pretty simple. I just have to do it.
Yeah.
Right. I just have to make sure that, it is safe. I mean, when I said it is safe, I mean that the ropes are tied properly, and the rope is in the belay, right? In the belay properly, all that. Just the few things that I was told to do it, right? So in that sense, it wasn't too bad, honestly. It's just that fear, doing it for the first time in the dark, that was a little hard. But when we got down, I felt so great. I mean, I didn't have any thought of, I'm gonna die today. I didn't doubt it. But at the same time, that relief that I got. Yeah.
Very primal, right?
Yeah, very primal.
Because like you said, it was very cold, high winds.
Oh, and yeah, let's not forget about the cold. It was
gosh, it was cold.
Yeah.
I mean, slightly above freezing at that point.
Yeah.
And none of us, you remember, I got to the first pitch, and they're like, "Oh, we're just gonna leave the jackets down here." I was like, "No, I think you should pack the jackets. I know there's not a lot of room, but can you imagine if we didn't have jackets? And we didn't have heavy jackets.
Yeah.
It was like thin.
Yeah.
So thank goodness we at least brought our jackets up there, and we had water and everything of that nature. But yeah, I don't know of any other sport outside of mountaineering and things like close to that where you can really get that thrill and that adventure where your life is on the line. You may not have felt unsafe, but you're very aware that if I don't double check this stuff, or if I mess it up, I could die, or I could kill my friend, or something along those lines.
Right.
And I think that's just so awesome to be able to be actively choosing to engage in those situations. Like, you're prepared, you have headlamps and all the other stuff, but there's always an inherent risk to climbing. As you read in every single waiver you'll ever sign for every climbing gym, it's inherently dangerous. You can die, you can get injured, seriously maimed, whatever. But there's so much freedom in taking on that risk. And looking at your systems, understanding it, trusting the gear, and overcoming that primal fear. Because for a lot of us, you get 15 feet off the ground and your body's like, yo, what are you doing? Go back down.
Right.
But it also, for me, it's almost meditative, because it puts me in a situation where it's like I have to execute. Nothing else matters. When I'm throwing the wall, sketchy lead or whatever, I'm not thinking about exes. I'm not thinking about the drama with the girlfriend. I'm not thinking about any of those life's problems, my job, whatever. The only thing that matters in that moment is ascending and descending and doing it effectively. And I find so much peace in that. I think a lot of people would also find peace in that. And that's something you can't get at a climbing gym. Like, you just can't. You have to go out in nature and get it. And again, take the proper precautions. Go with a friend who's well-versed. Go with a guide, hire somebody. And you can have the time of your life. You can be so hooked. And people do this. The cool thing about this sport is people do it all the way in their 70s, if not older, and still have amazing experiences. It's one of the few sports where you can continually do it your entire life and have this huge benefit.
Right.
And I think that's something that's often overlooked in the exercise arena or the fitness industry. It's not about necessarily the longevity, like they tell you it's longevity and things like that. But I mean, how many people do you know actively doing that stuff like into their 60s? Not a lot, Plus, like we said before, it takes you to beautiful places. We're going to be in a foreign land, with a language we don't speak, people we don't understand all culturally, and we get to have that, and we get to do a hobby that's very enjoyable to us. And I think that's wonderful. And then also, lets you connect with nature because you're being put in nature.
Yeah, I think that's why it is getting so popular these days, right? That they're part of being in nature, right? Which is a big push and then big desire these days, because a lot of people spend a lot more time virtually rather than in reality. And there's that, the emphasis of, oh, you, like, I want to be in nature. I just don't want to look at it. I just don't want to see people being in nature. I want to be in nature.
Yeah.
Right? I think that is connecting with that, part of climbing as well. I mean, you told me about this, that the climbing forums were so small even a couple of years ago, but now it's like just dramatic increase.
Yeah. I
in
mean,
population,
crazy.
Right?
Crazy amount of people that are doing it now. And a lot of these people spend the majority of their time inside gyms, and they might never go outside. Like, don't get me wrong, I still think I love climbing at the gym. I love bouldering inside. It's still climbing, but it definitely misses that real key sense of adventure that you get in nature and like experiencing your surroundings. And like you said, as we get more and more engaged in this virtual reality, and I mean that like augmented reality and all things of that nature, metaverse and all that jazz, we become more disconnected from the qualitative experience that's all around us, these other facets of reality. And that saddens me, it excites me. It's a complex feeling, because for the people that I know and I like care about, I want them to be able to have this real phenomenal experience of life that I can get in climbing. And again, what we're talking about, like, you're brand new to climbing, and you're able to go climb a mountain, like be at the top.
True, that's very true.
Almost anybody can do it.
Yeah, in this sense, I think bouldering is not like that, right? I mean, as a beginner, it could be could be hard.
Yeah, especially if you go outside. Don't take your friend bouldering outside.
Actually,
it can be.
No, I don't want to do it again. But
it's very rough. It's not like climbing a rock ladder. Most of the time, it's hard. Even at the lowest grades, you're just like, this is hard, and people enjoy this. My skin hurts. I'm going like 3 feet off the ground. Like, what is the point of this? But I mean, other than that, bouldering has its, you and I like bouldering because we like being explosive and just trying to use as much strength as possible and overcoming that barrier. And of course, bouldering has its mental game, just like every other style of climbing does as well. But I mean, I just can't preach its greatness enough.
I mean, the nature part, just be more about that. I think, I'm sure there are people who don't like to be in nature, who don't prefer to be in nature, rather they prefer, being in the city or crowded area, whatever. So, I mean, we're not saying that, this is absolutely the thing that everybody should try. I mean, maybe everybody should try, why not, right? But everybody must do, right? But definitely, I think at least most people like to be in nature, right? I mean, hiking and things like that. But I mean, again, we're not really pushing any idea for anybody. But
I mean, less people at the crag, I always enjoy that. It's a little quieter.
Right. Well, also let's talk about climbing scene here in Thailand a little bit, right?
Oh yeah. So you want to talk about the gym we went to yesterday?
Yesterday, yeah. So that was in Chiang Mai, by the way. It seems to be that there are a couple of gyms, right?
Looks like a few.
Yeah, both are outside, and one of them that we went was outside, really small. Maybe there were one wall pretty tall, but that was not 50 feet tall, right?
Yeah, I don't know. It was maybe a 15-meter wall.
Yeah, but for sport climbing, and then maybe 2 walls, small, maybe 6 foot tall, maybe more than 6 foot, maybe 10 foot tall, something like that.
Maybe 10 to 12 feet.
Yeah,
2 meters.
And then maybe 20 foot wide wall. That was it. And then it was outside. No AC, very hot. And, just mosquitoes, right? That was the worst part. Yeah,
they're like birds.
So, yeah, and then we got there late. They closed at 7. But, I mean, the staff was really kind.
Yeah, Quan, he was cool. Cool dude. He's been climbing
Shout out to Quan. I mean, we don't even know you, but you were cool.
Yeah.
But and then that was the first time we heard kapong, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it is kapong kap or kapong ka. That's thank you by the way. But he said kapong. I
Yeah.
guess it's the equivalent to thanks.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So kop, is the male polite
Right.
way,
Mhm.
ka being the female polite way. And that was the first time, like you're saying,
Yeah.
where somebody's like kapong,
Yeah.
like laid back, chill, cool, like thanks. I
Right.
was like, oh man, that's so cool. Like, what a homie. And he came
Right.
over, he's just talking to us, oh, where you're
Yeah,
from,
very
and
kind.
just like giving us the pointers and things of that nature.
Mhm.
And super cool. I mean, everybody here is so awesome.
Yeah, we'll talk about that about
Yeah.
Thailand later. But anyway, bouldering. If you look for bouldering in Chiang Mai, at least it won't be easy. You have to go outside probably.
Yeah.
But in Bangkok, there was pretty big gym. Way better. It's bigger, but also the AC wasn't running. They have AC system, but they were not running it because I guess it's too expensive. I don't know exact the reason.
I would imagine that's the reason. It was midday. He was
Yeah.
telling us they turn on the AC in the afternoon for the office crowds and people
Yeah.
like that. There's also probably a lot more people.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, I can't imagine it's very easy to get really strong out here just because it's so humid. It's so hot. And for example, the gym we went to yesterday, the hardest climb was a V6, which,
Right.
like, don't get me wrong, like, that's difficult for a lot of people, but for most people that climb frequently and often, everybody can reach that
Right.
level pretty quickly.
I mean, it also has to do with the popularity, right?
Yeah. So
If it's not popular, then
Yeah.
what's the point of setting V10, V11, V12, right?
yeah. And then you got, the climbing outside, so it kind of de-incentivizes as well.
Mhm.
But like you were saying, the gym in Bangkok, Stone Goat, was much more modern.
Yeah.
It had, normal walls, lots of variations of new school holds and things like that, and very friendly. They had a moon board,
Mhm.
training area, hang boards, things of that nature. But we were talking to the guy that works there, and he was saying that, it's blowing up, even in Bangkok. The climbing scene's getting
Right,
bigger,
Right.
and that's
So
really
it's
exciting.
international phenomena, basically.
yeah. I mean, you got Japan so close, Korea. We see it all
Yeah.
the time now that,
On Instagram.
there's people.
Good climbers too.
Yeah. So it's really cool to see that it's gaining the popularity, especially in Southeast Asia.
Right.
I think the biggest thing, though, like we've talked about before, is going to be the aircon, air condition, because
Right.
climbing is very friction dependent, depending on where you're at and what you're climbing on. But, the hotter it is, the more humid, the worse the friction is. So it's hard. It's hard to climb hard
Yeah.
under those conditions.
Right.
Not to say you shouldn't, because it's still a lot of fun. There's still a lot to be gained.
Mm-hmm.
But I can totally understand why a lot of people don't enjoy climbing in those conditions.
Oh yeah. 100%.
But don't let it dissuade you. Even if it's hot outside, it's not the best situation to go climb. You should give it a shot, because
Yeah.
you can still have a lot of fun. You just can't climb the hardest things. But that doesn't matter, because
Right.
you're new to climbing anyway. You're not going to climb the hardest things no matter what.
Yeah. And let's talk about a little bit about Alta, right? Because we right before this in Thailand, before we came to Thailand, we were in Phoenix, Arizona. I mean, obviously, in comparison, there were a lot of good gyms, but Alta was the first gym. As far as we know, that's the first gym in Phoenix or in Arizona at least.
Yeah,
right?
that has the
50
yeah.
foot tall wall.
Yeah,
Right?
so the sport walls, much more modern gym. All the other gyms in the area, pretty old school. They've been there
Right.
for a while. The holds are old, and they just didn't have a real robust gym, like a good training facility to bring up new
Right.
climbers. So Alta has really stepped in to fill that need,
Right.
and the most amazing, lovable, kind staff
Yes.
and owners I've ever met of any gym,
Yeah.
that made it feel so much like home.
Mm-hmm.
Like the closest thing to feeling like at home there in Phoenix.
Right.
And can't praise it enough. Want to give shout out to Alta. You guys are killing it.
Yeah.
Seriously, like everybody in the Phoenix region, Arizona, that's the gym you want to go check out.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say the other gyms aren't good and have their own place, but if you're looking for a modern experience,
Well, that's not true. Well, we had actually had some bad experiences in other gyms.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
we're not gonna really pinpoint the area, but I mean, in comparison, Alta, by far the best gym in Phoenix area. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, me personally, I wouldn't. If I was telling anybody who's new to the area to go find a climbing gym, just go straight to Alta.
Yeah.
They have 2 locations. They have Alta Boulders,
Right.
Chandler, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they have the main Alta gym that just is
Climbing.
recently open. Yeah. And that's in Gilbert.
Mm-hmm.
And they're very close to each other. The ropes gym actually has a bouldering section as well.
Yes.
We got a moon board. They have a tension board up there as
Tension
well,
board,
I think. And
all the other.
yeah,
I mean,
workout facility.
Not just the staff, but in terms of quality of facility, I mean, by
Night
far.
and day.
There-
No,
yeah,
there's
night
no-
and day. There's
that's-
no comparison.
Yeah, that's a quantitative. 100% can say.
Mm-hmm.
Totally not qualitative. Their gym is better in that
Yeah.
regard. The facility is
100%.
better, and love it. Love them.
Yeah.
Go check them out. Everybody who's hearing this from Phoenix or the area.
2 people. No, oh, sorry. Our 3 Patreons. But what else you want to talk about? I mean, we have a little bit more time, but
What do I want to talk about when it comes to climbing? I feel like it's something I could talk about forever.
yeah.
And maybe the community would be a good place.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's changing and it's different, and people have their varying opinions about that.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say on average, climbers are some of the most chilled, cool people you'll ever meet, especially the ones that are outside. You know, there's bad eggs in every bunch. But a lot of those guys sacrifice a lot of their freedom, you know, well-paying jobs and other things just to go climb. I mean, how many sports out there exist that people give up everything just to be a hobbyist?
Right.
Like, none of these guys are going to get to elite level,
Right.
but they're willing to give up everything for the
Right.
sport, almost.
Yeah, but also isn't that because partially you have to actually go out? I mean, yes, you can go to gym, but like if you want to climb outside, like it's not like, okay, so I've been doing Muay Thai for many years.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I have to quit my job to do Muay Thai, right? I mean, I really just all I have to do is just go to gym.
Yeah.
If I had an option, right? Like partially that's why we're here too. We're gonna some train Muay Thai here in Krabi. Not here, Chiang Mai, but in Krabi. But not a lot of sports actually you have to.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
But if you,
And you don't necessarily have to. I mean, I've been a weekend warrior. You know, I worked the 9 to 5, engineering job.
yeah,
Went out every weekend to go climb rocks. Like, yes, if you want to progress and get way better, much quicker, then yeah, you're going to need a lot of time on rock outside of people that are just, exceptional athletes that catch on really quick. Those people exist. But, I mean, a lot of people are just willing to give up so much just to spend more time outside. I don't know a lot of people that are willing to quit their jobs to just pursue martial arts. Don't get me wrong. There are those people that exist. But it seems like it's heavily skewed in the climbing community. And again, this is probably going to change because it's blowing up, right? So you're going to have a wider population, and that percentage is going to drop drastically, I imagine. And of course, there's other things that come with this. Like, you get more than just climbing. You're getting the outdoors. You're getting the hiking.
camping.
Yeah, so it's multifaceted. So when I
Right.
say it's not like they're just quitting their job purely just to climb rocks.
Right.
It's everything around it. And I think that's really cool. But, I mean, a climber is the type of person that'll help you out more times than not, has been my anecdotal experience.
Yeah.
And I just think that speaks volumes to a sport. Or it makes it much more desirable to try that sport when the people are cool. Like, they're not worried about how hard you're climbing. They're stoked you just climbed that V0.
Yeah.
Like, legitimately stoked for you.
Yeah.
Because they know how hard it was to get to that.
Yeah.
They know how hard it is to push through these barriers.
Mm-hmm.
And to see other people, like, overcome these things,
Yeah.
like, it's insane. And the applicability is more than climbing. Like, pushing through the grades is more applicability than just a rock climbing. I mean, you know this in, like, Muay Thai and things of that nature, or belt progression systems in martial arts. Overcoming these hard challenges and these difficulties,
Right.
you do it in one area of your life, you can suddenly do it in so many other areas.
That's why they celebrate it, right?
Yeah.
Just in different ways, but
Yeah.
it's the same same thing.
I just
Yeah.
again, go climb. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, definitely try, right? At least, I mean, you may not like it, who knows, but I think it's a really fun sport to try. And again, like, it comes with so many different things, right? Hiking, camping, sleeping in the van,
Yeah. Yeah.
all the other illegal activities.
Depending on which state you live in or country. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm sure there's maybe some subcategories that we can talk about later. But today we wanted to just have some generic discussion about
and this is
climbing.
obviously like a brief introduction. There's a whole bunch of other great climbing podcasts, YouTube videos,
I bet, yeah.
and all these other things you could check out. This is just like my experience of it.
Right.
And I mean, it's wonderful when you have something that you want to share with other people. I think that's really how you know you love something. And when you want to share it from a point of view, like, I'm not trying to get you, I'm not trying to convince you, I'm just wanting to talk about it because I love what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that we see in life where people, I feel like they don't really believe it, so they're trying to make you believe it, to make themselves feel better about their belief of it or their lack of belief surrounding it. Whether those are political ideologies or philosophy or things of that nature.
Yeah.
But, that's, again, another topic for another day.
Yeah.
What would you say has been the most satisfying moment for you in climbing so far?
A moment?
Yeah.
For me, I think when I did that V5, remember? Not the V6 one, but the V5 one that
the blue? Or the black?
First project.
The black?
Yeah, the first project. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because to me, again, like, I like explosive stuff, but I usually get results quickly. And that one, it was a complete beatdown. I just couldn't do it. And the more I did it, the less confidence I had. And then it just surprised me. I'm not that kind of person. I have maybe too much confidence sometimes. I have, a lot of confidence in physical, like, strength and everything. But that one just, made me realize that, oh man, I may not be able to do this. But I just kept doing it, despite that fact. Just killed my ego completely. I just realized that, okay, I just have to keep trying, keep trying in different ways, keep trying to improve. One day I will be able to do it.
Yeah.
And it seems just so far even at that point. But when I finally did it, it was just an amazing feeling.
Yeah. What we should mention that was on our 30-day climbing challenge.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Do you remember which episode? I think that was episode 2, right?
Episode 2. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, episode 2.
Yeah, and that was
part 2 of 30-day climbing challenge.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, we also have this on the YouTube, but we did a climbing challenge 30 days. We did a test that's pretty standardized and been popularized in the last year to see what grade you can climb based on several factors.
Right.
Strength, endurance, blah, blah, blah. And so we took the test, and we wanted to see, with you being pretty much brand new to climbing, if you could reach the grade. And you got V6, which was cool. And I know there's V7s out there that you can do. But if you haven't watched those videos already, you should go check them out, because I think they're a lot of fun, and they can give you an idea maybe how you want to structure things, because we both saw huge gains from it.
Gains for sure.
Yeah. And again, it was a very difficult time in our lives. There's a lot. We were traveling, death of a friend, and horrible sleeping conditions, situations. Yet we were still able to train, do the recording, and see progress. And that was just awesome. And I got you a little fire in your belly for more climbing, so go check it out. Maybe it'll get you stoked. Maybe you can see what we're talking about rather than just hearing it. You know, have some fun with it.
Yeah. So we're gonna stay in Thailand for a while. We don't know exactly how long. So our next few episodes will be at least, done here in Thailand. So, yeah, if you have anything that you want to see, or you want to you want us to experience in Thailand, let us know.
Please.
Yeah, we'll try our best to.
We both have already succumbed to food poisoning. We've been hungover several times. We've had a lot of amazing food.
Right.
We've seen elephants.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things we want more to do,
Mm-hmm.
and we want to hear your thoughts and ideas about those things, and maybe we can do something to make it come true.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I think that wraps it up.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you
guys.
guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us this week. We hope you found some value in this episode.
Please check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/thetheoryofliving.
Subscribe, leave us feedback, and share us with your friends.
Get out there and design a theory that calls you to experience.
We'll see you next week. Thanks.